work. And you're soon going to see just why that sugar has a hold on us. I am a nurse. I worked as a nurse practitioner for a while, and women's health nurse practitioner. I've had the opportunity to teach nursing, and then went on to do more work in nutrition and went to integrated nutrition, and now I'm a wellness advocate and a health coach, and also obviously involved in the Juice Plus company because I totally believe in whole food nutrition. So you're going to see that later too. Now, we think about sugar and we think, why do I have these cravings at 10, 2, 4 o'clock during the day? This is one of the reasons why we have those cravings. There really is a reason, because your brain loves sugar. And you can see the MRI patterns of how the green areas, that is your sugar lit up like a Christmas tree, okay? Your brain lit up like a Christmas tree when it's on sugar. And isn't it odd, maybe, that it's the same area of the brain that gets lit up with the use of cocaine, okay? So you think, okay, we know cocaine is addicting, okay? I don't think anyone would deny that. Sugar is also addicting, and you can see how your brain absolutely loves it. When we are addicted to sugar, have a love for sugar, it actually hijacks your brain, rewires things a little bit, and makes it so that that executive branch of decision making, doesn't work so well. So that's why when you have that pan of brownies that you've made and you smell it, it smells so good, and you think, you know what, I'm just going to taste it. I'm just going to cut this little corner. The next thing you know, half the pan is gone because you have been hijacked. And you truly don't have the ability to say no. And it works. I mean, it truly works against us. And we look and we think, okay, what's facing us now? Sugar, sugar, sugar. We've got office parties. We have family get-togethers. And it's like, oh my gosh. When they did a survey on people and they said, okay, what are you most stressed out about over the holidays? You know what they said? It wasn't about being with people that aren't our heart people, that we didn't really enjoy and want to be with. It was about, how do I avoid eating so much of the junk? And, it's like, what's going to happen? You feel like you're going to pull your hair out. It's just like you don't know where to turn. And this is why. Are you surprised to see just a short list of foods that there are so much sugar in that you might be shocked to know? I mean, I think that out of that list, pasta sauce really got me. When I started looking at the ingredient list, when I would go with some of the people that I was working with and they wanted to change out what was in their pantries, we would start searching for some pasta sauces. There's so many of them that have such high sugar content. I talked to someone the other day and they're like, well, I've got these great granola bars. They said, well, did you ever look at the sugar content on them? Or the sugar content in yogurt? Yogurt doesn't have to be the evil, but sometimes it is, and it contains a lot of sugar. So I would challenge you to go home and start looking through your food right now and become more of a label reader. And when I talk about being a label reader, I'm talking about this area right here. It's all right. Certainly you want to look at the macronutrients per serving of everything you're getting, but you want to look at the ingredients as far as what's really in that food. So I'm saying, okay, look for sugar, okay, so you don't get caught up. So look at the ingredient list, look at it closely, and you need to count how many sources of sugar there are. Well, I'm going to make it easy for you. Each one of those is a source of sugar. It's just by a different name. All right, so you just have to educate yourself, be a little wiser than the manufacturers. When you look at coffee, while it might help us survive, coffee might help us survive on Mondays, one thing that I just bring it to your attention is because we're now moving into cooler weather, people will have a tendency to gravitate towards warmer drinks. It's the holidays, so we kind of give ourselves permission to go in this direction. If you were to have a grande, a mocha, I don't care if it's at a big chain or just at a local place, you're going to have about 400 calories and you're going to have about 35 grams of sugar, okay? That's something to keep in mind. The dollar signs aren't the dollar signs that you're spending on coffee. the dollar signs are, is the industry. They know how to market to us very well. They know how to keep that food hyper palatable so that we keep going back for more. They know what they're doing. And the industry years ago, about 50 years ago, decided that fat was a bad thing for us, so they started loading all the foods up with sugar. And so while that helped the sugar industry, it certainly didn't help our stabilization of our blood sugar or our chronic disease panels. Now you know the answer to this. You know how much you're supposed to have, right? 6 teaspoons for women and 9 teaspoons for men, all right? And that's by the American Heart Association. For kids, ages 2 to 18, the recommendation is less than 6 teaspoons. Age 2 and less, it's 0. And I will tell you, when I know what little kids are eating, it's more than that. In fact, if you look at what the average American's taking in, it's 30 teaspoons. And some people will report 22, but some people will report up to 55. And you might take in 50 to 66 pounds of sugar a year. You might be taking in 150 pounds per year. And there were some reports that showed young kids were taking in 12 teaspoons of sugar every day. And this is what happens. We know the diseases that come out of sugar from the processed foods. And this is a short list. If we think about the other things that occur though with sugar, you end up having sugar drive inflammation. Sugar drives then all the chronic diseases. Sugar is going to drive even wrinkles in your face because it's going to break down the collagen. All right? It affects the immune system. So those are all the things that we need to be aware of. And you already talk to your patients about sugar in the mouth, brushing away the sugar after they eat. It's not so easy to brush away those sugar cravings though that the patients have. But you do have an audience that you can share some of the strategies that we're going to talk about that they perhaps can implement in their own lives. Because the imbalances drive the cravings. That's the crux of it. There's voids or imbalances in a person's life that actually drive that. Dehydration might be one, lack of nutrients as another, history and habits. There was something posted on a website that I'm a member of, and the question was, it was a health site, and the question was, what do you love about December? What's your favorite thing? And one of the people, I mean, we're all honest on there, we know each other, and they said, it's eating all the junk food. You know, pure and simple, that was the end of it. So that is with the history and habits, and the holidays are filled with it. It's hard to thrive and get around that sugar. Lifestyle, not enough time for exercise, that's what I hear a lot from people. And then just plain old fatigue. I've kind of divided it up though. When we look at those sugar cravings, you can look at your body as having like 4 switches, okay? And these 4 switches we're going to talk about tonight are going to be physiological imbalances, FLCs, gut imbalance, and neurotransmitter imbalance. And when I look at switches, I think of witches, you know, because sugar can be pretty evil. So that's how I see that. And these switches get turned on, and they're hard to turn off sometimes. Starting with the physiological deficiency, though, or the imbalance, willpower really has a little play in it, if anything at all. When this switch gets turned on, that willpower is right out the window. You get real hungry, angry. Do you ever feel that when you have that hunger in the afternoon? You get real irritated with people. You know, you kind of lose your focus on what you're thinking about. Your brain gets kind of foggy. And sometimes it's because you've gone too long without food, but it's even more true that you've gone too long without feeding your body the food that it really needs, that whole food nutrition that you need. And you may end up having episodes of reactive hypoglycemia. And what that means, that doesn't mean you're diabetic. That means that you had that big carb meal, and then within that 4-hour period after that, you just crash. And your blood sugar's been shot up so high, and then it just goes down so low. And you see that. If you look at the horizontal line, That's what you want. That's that nice, even, steady state. With a better, well-balanced food pattern, you're going to be in the green area. But when you eat lots of the refined carbs and you're not paying attention to the other foods that you're putting in your body, really pumping yourself with the sugar, you're going to be on the red. So you have the big peaks that you feel great, and then boom, you crash. Well, what do? You head on down to the break room, and you've got patients bringing you in all these goodies. You've got vendors bringing in all this stuff, and you're kind of like caught up. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm hungry, you know, you need something. So you're reaching for that. You head to the coffee pot, and if all else fails, you're reaching into the desk and in your purse, hoping that you've got something in there left over. The feel like crap is, yeah, your anxieties have anxieties, and I think I've been there before, and I'm sure that some of you have felt really irritated, fatigued. It can go on with adrenals so that you have hot flashes when there's no reason to have hot flashes. Menses can get totally out of whack when these things get all screwed up. You can start losing your hair. Now, when people start losing their hair, that generally gets people's attention, and then they may seek help, okay? Otherwise, they think, well, aren't I just supposed to feel like this? You know, I felt like this for 20 years. And it's the cravings that really are driven by feeling so wiped out. And if you think of a typical day, think about a typical day in your life. Get up. Were you planned? Did you pack breakfast? Did you eat breakfast before you left? Did you have something packed for lunch? Did the kids have a project and you had to run them off to school? If you don't have kids to run off, were you 10 minutes late getting up? That means you're 10 minutes late in the whole traffic pattern, which means then you've got to deal with all that traffic. You've got patients waiting for you to start at 8 o'clock. You're not going to be there. You rush in, you haven't had anything to eat. 10 o'clock rolls by. Oh, you think, well, I might get to go to the bathroom. And then the dentist says, hey, I need you to come and do this. So you're like, okay, oh yeah, sure. You know, you keep that happy smile on. And lunchtime comes, and you're past lunch, and now it's 12:30, and you know you're starting to get at 1, and you put your patients first. So you're just driven yourself in a cycle. You haven't really fed yourself. You haven't had any water, okay? You're getting dehydrated. And so now we're moving on to 2 o'clock. And you know you're lucky to get out at 4:30, 5 o'clock. Now you have to hit the traffic. Well, what are you going to feed your family? You're going to go to plan? Are you going to go through fast food? You're starving. You hit that door, or you've got somewhere to go. That's your life. And that's what drives the poor adrenal and thyroid imbalance. I like to say I'm a mess syndrome versus that. And then we've got the gut imbalance. And sometimes when we eat foods, you get this bloating, okay? And you just, you feel miserable. And you're like, what is going on with me? You know, you get some bowel irregularity. You might notice your ears are itching. Now, I know in the wintertime our ears itch a little bit, okay, dry skin and all. But this is like itching ears, okay? You're like, oh, what is this? You might even get a yeast infection, okay? Heavenly days. And then, if all else, you might end up with a fungus on your nails. And it might be that you actually have yeast that has overgrown within your body. Well, yeast loves sugar, okay? So now how's that yeast going to get fed? Well, you're going to crave those foods, those sugars. And you really do love bread, love pastries at this point, because that yeast is driving those cravings. You see how imbalances occur? Drive cravings, and that's what's happening. When I worked as a nurse practitioner, I took care of, I'm a women's health nurse practitioner, so I took care of women who truly did have yeast infections. And what we did is we took care of the problem, but we never really fixed the whole deal. And so repeatedly they would come back. Now I know a whole lot more than I did at that point because of the nutrition. And why I would try to get them, even at that point, to try to change their diet. There's so many people that would rather take the one pill than to be able to change the diet and clean up the whole situation. You really need a balance, and that means really fixing the whole system. Neurotransmitter imbalances definitely drive cravings. Dopamine, serotonin when they get out of whack. The thing with the dopamine is when we take the sugar in, we actually downregulate the dopamine receptors. And what that does is then it demands more to be satisfied. So that's why you're always needing more, because you have that boom, you feel great, and then boom, you don't feel so great, it crashes. And then the serotonin, when that gets out of whack, you definitely feel out of order. And when serotonin is level, you're on cloud 9. That's a great thing. But when it has a decrease, you definitely start seeing that negativity coming out. You don't feel well, you're irritable. You'll just snap at people at the least little thing. Get real hostile. People will suffer from true feelings of depression when this gets out of whack. And then this poor family, you know, over the holidays, they're all dressed up, but they enjoyed the pasta, and they had some, you know, garlic bread, and the parents had a glass of red wine, and the kids had their favorite soda, and then they all topped it off with cheesecake. And instead of sharing a piece, they each had a piece. They felt great, and then they crashed, and that's exactly what happens. You take in the carb like that, you feel great. You've got lots of sugar going on. It messes with all the neurotransmitters. You've got that irregular blood sugar going on, and then you crash. And that's what you feel like. You don't feel very well. But you don't have to be there. You can actually have a balance that you can create. Now, the strategies that I'm going to share, you can't just go and do all that stuff at one time. But you can start layering it on. And you can encourage your patients to start making little changes too, so that they can use food to their advantage, they can use motion, they can use drinking responsibly and getting sleep and stress management, and it can really start to make a difference. Whole food definitely fuels your body from the get-go. You think about, can you see, imagine it being grown, okay, that's whole food. When you buy processed, I like to go for 5 ingredients or less. It's a good policy if you can't get it down to 1. And so when you're looking at whole food, that means your body will be satisfied. You're giving it the nutrition that your body desires. It'll minimize your cravings, and it will definitely balance your hormones. So using whole food as a vice, you need protein, and you need protein every meal. You need clean protein, so that's going to mean that, you know, you might even know where you're getting that animal protein from. You might know the person who was actually growing that. If you're doing plant-based, you're going to go the non-GMO route, okay, and you're going to use clean sources. Definitely need fat. Fat has gotten a bad rap, and we need fat. Without fat, your hormones are going to be totally out of whack. You're not going to feel well, because that whole system in your body works together. So you need good fat. If you haven't tried, you know, using coconut oil, I would encourage you to go ahead and try it. Coconut oil has so many uses. You know, you can be rubbing it on your skin, and you can be sauteing your vegetables and putting it in muffins. I mean, it's like all from the top of the house to the bottom. And then the non-starchy vegetables. That's such a short list. There's so many of those. But always try to get that plate at least halfway filled up with those things. That is a really good starting point. And then the timing is so important. You've got to feed yourself. You can't work all day and not have any food for your body. It's just not going to work.
You probably should repeat that to this group.
Stay on the table and yell at
Oh. Yeah, you have to have time for yourself. You got to feed yourself. You got to stay healthy. If you're promoting health, you need to practice health. Okay, it's more than just for your patients. It's for you all too to be able to do. Breakfast should be non-negotiable. If you have to sign a contract with yourself, then do it. Okay, and to make sure that it includes protein. Avoid showing up on an empty stomach. And I'm talking about the parties that you're going to and the get-togethers. You know, people think, well, I'm not going to eat breakfast, I'm not going to eat lunch, I'm going to save everything for tonight because I'm going to this special party. Well, you know what you're going to do, and research will show this. You're going to go and you're going to eat as many calories at that party as what you would have eaten all day. But now you know what you're going to do? You're going to mess up your blood sugar and your insulin, okay? So eat that breakfast. Eat a lighter lunch. Eat a snack. Eat protein before you go to the party. and enjoy the company of the people that are at the party. That's why we're really there, is the conversation. So we have to kind of look at what that food represents to us. Consider adding in a whole food nutritional if you haven't already done that. You probably already know about Juice Plus, but Juice Plus is a whole food nutritional. It's not a vitamin, and so I certainly encourage that. Count your bites. Now I've done an experiment and an assignment for you guys for the weekend. Choose something that you really like to eat, okay? And I want you to take a bite of it, and I want you to chew it at least 20 times, if not 30. And all the time that you're chewing this, I want you to think about how it feels in your mouth, what it tastes like, and that burst of flavor, okay? Really enjoy it. Take the second bite, do the same thing. Third bite, do the same thing. And then I want you to pause, and I want you to think, you know, this third bite, it doesn't taste like the first bite did. And you're right, it doesn't. First bite, great. Second bite, still good. Third bite, yeah. Why do you eat the whole thing? In 3 to 4 bites, you're really going to have your taste buds, which we need sweets, okay? We will always eat something sweet. It may just not be the processed sugar. And you'll be shocked what that 3 to 4 bites will do for you. So do that as an experiment. Definitely count your bites. And another thing about counting your bites is people who have moved away from eating dessert every night before they go to bed, they'll choose to have dessert once a week and they'll share it. And it won't be right before you go to bed. That is not a positive move for you to do if you're trying to regulate your blood sugar and insulin. You'll end up just increasing your inflammation. Don't hang out around the food table at a party, okay? I heard this saying recently. A friend, this guy that I really have a lot of respect for, said, if you hang out in a barbershop long enough, you will get your hair cut. And I thought, that's really true. That's the same thing about a party. If you go and hang out around a table, things just start looking interesting. You're like, oh, and you just won't even plate them. You'll just grab them off the platter, you know? So I'm like, yeah, don't hang around the food table. Get in with your friends and talk. And plate your goodies. Get in there and get food you want. Choose the smallest plate that they have to offer you. And then go ahead and take what you want. And don't be afraid to turn down Aunt Kate's pies. Why do we get it in our head that, oh, my dear aunt has made this pie and she's going to be so offended? There's ways of getting around that, okay? You can always take a slice, take 3 bites, and don't eat the rest. Take a slice, eat 3 bites, and share it. Take a slice, take it home with you, put it in the freezer for a later date. There's plenty of ways not to offend her after you've been enjoying it for 30 years. And start roasting up vegetables. Do you guys already do roasting of vegetables and healthy saute? You know, what does healthy saute? You just put it in a skillet, you chop them all up, and use vegetable broth to saute them. And then put your spices on them, they're delicious. Get online and Google out to your heart's content about different healthy versions of your favorite holiday recipes. Because, you know, nutrition is only about 200 years old as far as the science is concerned, but in the last 5 years, it has exploded, okay? And there's so many people that are doing cooking and blogging, and you can find anything that you want. Don't pick the fat-free stuff because it's just loaded with sugar. Because when they took the fat out, they had to put the sugar in to get the flavor to create that hyperpalatability. And do you encourage the use of cinnamon for people? Because as an antioxidant and blood sugar stabilizer, I recently was reading where 2 teaspoons a day is not a bad thing. And they were encouraging to take the stick and actually grind it to get maximum benefit from it. So I would encourage you to give that a shot. You can start early in the morning with your sugar on your oatmeal. If you have that cup of coffee in the morning, put it in your coffee, put it in your smoothie, put it on your apples. There's just so many uses for that. You got to be a meal planner. If you don't plan, it's going to get away from you. You know, when I've worked with people they wanted help because they said, like, you know, my week gets away from me totally. And when you first start doing the meal planning, it's a lot. People are really overwhelmed with it because it's a big chunk of time and they really don't understand the foods and what the foods mean. So give yourself a little grace when you do this, but do it in some format or get help to do it because it is really important. And don't ever stop being an ingredient label reader. We all get sucked into something that we buy because marketing is so powerful. But if you flip it over, it probably should stay on the shelf. And then motion is so important. You know, we know that motion has so many positives there. You know, with insulin resistance and the blood sugar regulation, you're going to sleep so much better, and the neurotransmitters love it. And we know it's going to prevent a lot of chronic disease. But exercise is not for the right to eat, or it is not for punishing yourself, okay? Motion is for enjoyment. Exercise is for enjoyment. So that may be a different thought process. Oh, I've eaten that chocolate cream pie, so now I'm going to get on the treadmill for an hour, okay? That is a thought process that might need to be changed. Definitely keep exercise on the calendar and choose something you love. And I was thinking about, you know, different activities and we like to gift people. How about gifting a friend something with motion that you could do, go with them to do, you know, whether it's Pilates or yoga or whatever. And not only do you guys get the gift of motion, you get the gift of time together, which is so important. And don't ever give up fresh air. Now, when I think about drinking responsibly, I think about water first. That should be the first thing that you have. So if you're taking water with you to bed, you have it right there beside you. You can just finish it off before you even get down to the kitchen. Otherwise, then go with your warm lemon water. And when people start doing it, and I'm not talking about hot. Hot lemon water isn't very tasty to me. But if you take your cup, say you have this cup, and you fill it halfway with hot water, and then you fill it the rest of the way with your clean source of water, and then put your fresh lemon in it, or the oil, lemon oil, and that your liver and your colon really likes that. If you enjoy alcohol, you want to decrease your sugar, keep it on the rocks. Put a cork in it early. That's going to decrease your sugar. Certainly, if you haven't started drinking alcohol, I'm not encouraging you to do that. And then realize that drinking and eating mindlessly kind of go hand in hand. So you're going to maybe putting on a few more sugar pieces on that plate. We always talk about dropping a dress size. Why not drop a glass size? You know, some of those beverage glasses are pretty big. And then what's really the magic number? And you've heard it. I don't know that we practice it all the time, but it's 1 serving for females and 2 for males, all right, for alcohol. It's not 1 bottle. And then there's the caffeine. And what caffeine sometimes represents is caffeine and sugar kind of go hand in hand. And when you're dealing with, or even cigarettes, those 3 things kind of, you know, if people have a habit, sometimes we have to deal with all of those things at the same time. But the sugar and the coffee kind of go hand in hand. And I've worked with people that made 2 trips to Starbucks in a day, on the way to work, on the way home. And on the way to work, meant a latte and a lemon pound cake. On the way home, meant another sugar drink. And so that adds up after a while. That's a lot of insulin, putting that to work. It also impacts cortisol levels. And some people will have a negative reaction to caffeine as far as sleep goes. Sleep's really important. So if you're having trouble sleeping and you're taking in caffeine in the afternoon, just try to back that out a little bit. Maybe have some tea in the afternoon to have that hot beverage and see if that makes any difference in your sleep cycle. Because sleep and stress management are really important. There's lots of ways to stress, to decrease that stress, so you can look at these stress busters, and maybe you're already doing several of these things. If you're not doing any of these things, choose something that you think might look interesting. You know, you want to try yoga, you know, maybe you want to do some meditation. Meditation can be really challenging for people, but once you get it, it doesn't have to be difficult, it doesn't have to be lengthy. Once you're able to let that brain rest a little bit, and be void of things, you'll find such a benefit from it. Now, and I'm sure in your offices, you play nice music for your patient while you're doing your work. Do you guys down there in the Dayton area, do you play like nice relaxing?
No, it's just a local
Yeah.
radio station.
I don't think I've ever really listened to it, do you?
And I tune it out. I have to come in and even listen to it.
Yeah.
It's just like, just kind of.
They're watching television.
Yeah, we
Oh,
have
while
watching
they're
television.
working, while you're working on it, they're watching the thing. Oh, really? Oh, so they can't even hear anything you're saying.
Well, that's usually after we have our interview. Then we
Okay.
put our headphones on while we're doing the program. They're
Okay.
watching television.
All right, I got you.
Ask Daniel what kind of music he plays.
What is it?
We play pretty, well, I consider it fun country music all day.
Yeah.
Then when everyone leaves, it turns into a nightclub.
You get the silver ball out there. But see that music, people will identify with that, and they'll hear tunes that bring happiness to them, joy. Okay, so when you have that music going, some of that can be very positive, definitely. Deep breathing doesn't cost anything. Okay, and if you're not practicing deep breathing, I would suggest that you start out doing it where you take the inhale to the count of 4, hold it, just pause, and then release it to the count of 4, and do like 3 to 4 of those in a row. And you can do it in traffic, you can do it in the middle of the night when you wake up, and you're focusing on your breath, and you'll find that it will lower you, it will center you, and you'll find you'll be able to get back to sleep. You'll find that the traffic or getting lost in the traffic, when you just get all, that deep breathing will bring back. It's hard to be aggravated and do deep breathing at the same time. Spend the time with your heart people. Skip a party or two. You don't have to go to everything. We were talking about that earlier. Enjoy the sunlight when we can get it in the wintertime here. Have sex. Sex is a great stress release, okay? It really works well on the neurotransmitters. Have an attitude of gratitude. Now, I'm not giving you more work, like you don't have to keep a journal, because sometimes people see that as more work. But I want you to think about a trigger that you can have, that in the morning when you first get up, maybe it's when you're in the shower, think about 5 things when you're in the shower that you're really grateful for. And then when you're loading the dishwasher at night, or when you're falling off to sleep, the last things that you're thinking about, think again of 5 things. It might be the same 5, but try to work on that attitude of gratitude, and you'll find how positive your thought process becomes. Sleep, you have to have it, 7, 8, 9 hours. Continuous sleep is ideal. When you have that, you feel like, whoa, you've gone to heaven. To get that might mean that you need to skip some of the late night food. Ideally, you're not eating like 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed, okay, for the best sleep. Watch out for the hidden caffeine at those parties. When we sleep, it's really a reason. Our body is resetting. So there's physiology why it's so important, but you're really resetting, and you're allowing your body to go through and get all cleaned up, and then you're allowing some growth to take place. So that's really, really important. So that kitty cat obviously is really relaxed and enjoying himself, and I hope that you too will be able to take some of these strategies, plug them in, start with 1 tomorrow, and then build on it, layer on it, as you go forward. You can get through the holidays, discover how joyous they are, and take some of the strategies into 2017. Thank you.